Welcome to the Extraordinary Acts for Others podcast, brought to you by the extraordinary friends here at Freedom's Ring. We are excited to celebrate the extraordinary goodness being done right here in our extraordinary country by some truly extraordinary people. It is our sincere hope that we will excite your spirit, and after listening to today's podcast, you will excitedly go out and do your own extraordinary acts for others in your community. Are you ready? Let's get excited. Thank you for tuning in to the Extraordinary Acts for Others podcast this week, and for using part of your week to fill up with goodness. I am Sarah Hunnell, the host and the founder of Freedom's Ring, the nonprofit that brings to you this podcast. We are a military family-led nonprofit organization with a mission of creating an even more extraordinary America by bringing people together to do extraordinary acts for others. I'm really excited for today's podcast because I'm talking to Ian Haynes of The Mission Continues here in Columbus. For those who don't know about The Mission Continues, it is a veterans service organization that was started in 2007 by veterans by challenging them to continue to serve in their communities. It is their existence that really inspired me to start Freedom's Ring. So with that, here are the 3 things to know about Freedom's Ring, and it's all about why The Mission Continues inspires me so much. First, I absolutely love that the way that they serve veterans is to challenge them to help others. I believe that our society isn't challenged enough in this way, and to me, it seems that the challenges that are there are becoming a thing of the past, that somehow connecting with your community and volunteering are these old-fashioned traditions that just don't fit in our culture. Today. So I believe that we need a collective challenge, one that unites us and tells each of us that we do have a part to play in the success of our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, and our country. So I saw them do this, and I really believe that this challenge is something that can go to all people in our country. Second, I saw that they tapped into a veteran's desire for continued service. And I believe that service is a family value for all military families, and that military spouses also have the same desire to serve, which is why I used it to found Freedom's Ring. I know that this is true because the Blue Star Family Survey that is done each year shows that military spouses volunteer at a rate almost 3 times of that of the general population. The survey also shows that we long to be connected with our communities. We are constantly wanting more opportunities for that. So what Freedom's Ring wants to do is to provide more meaningful service opportunities that truly do connect people with their communities. Then the third thing that really stuck out to me about the Mission Continues is that they really understand the need for a sense of purpose, and that you can create that sense of purpose through service. The success that they've seen with veterans, I believe, can be duplicated just by encouraging people to come together to serve, to have a common team that goes out with a mission to serve others. And so that's what Freedom's Ring wants to do too, is empower military spouses with service that increases an individual's sense of purpose, their sense of worth, positive contribution. And those positive contributions really increase your sense of purpose, worth, and community. So when you join together with other people who are service-minded or are there to make that positive contribution, you grow your social network, you grow your friendships, you grow your contacts with the communities. And how many times do we say as military spouses that we joke, but it's not really a joke, that the emergency contact on our kids' forms for school, we don't really know them. And by providing these opportunities to get to know people and to integrate with the communities, hopefully we're hoping that not just our emergency form contacts are better acquaintances, but that we really do have a network that we can get in touch with to find jobs, get every 2 to 3 years. So, with that introduction, here's Ian Haynes to share with us about the Mission Continues and the work that he does here at the local level here in Columbus, Ohio. Hi, Ian. Thanks for joining us today, introducing yourself and how it is that you got into the Mission Continues organization.
So my name is Ian Haynes. I'm the City Impact Manager with the Mission Continues. And in my role as a City Impact Manager, I oversee our operations throughout the state of Ohio. I'm an Air Force veteran. I spent 10 years on active duty with the Air Force as an air battle manager, became an officer in 2005 after college, and in 2015 felt that I needed to do something different with my life. I wasn't ready to take off the uniform, so I jumped from the active duty into the Air National Guard, where I continue to serve now. In 2015, back to grad school. So used my time at Ohio State in a master's program in public policy as an opportunity to figure out what I wanted to do next. And that was my bridge and my plan, very loose plan for what I was going to do. Very loose plan for what I was going to do next after I left the service. In 2017, I graduated with Master's of Arts in Public Policy and Management, and it was time to figure out what I was going to do next, right? So I entered the workforce, and it was a scary thing, I'm not going to lie. For me, it was the first time that I was really getting multiple interviews and multiple opportunities. Really was thinking I was going to end up staying at Ohio State and when wanting to work there where I had worked while I was in school. Unfortunately, the opportunity for the right fit just wasn't there. And this opportunity with the Mission Continues came along. And I'd known about the organization, what I had seen online, and didn't know that there was really anything going on in Ohio. So when this opportunity for a city impact manager in Ohio popped up, it was just sort of the right fit at the right time, So I applied for it, and within 24 hours had a call back. It was great, and from there was able to start in October of 2017. Really launched the Columbus operation in 2018.
So let's talk about your role as a city impact manager. And to back up for a moment on the Mission Continues, it's a nonprofit that empowers veterans continue for that mission.
Right. So as a city impact manager, I mentioned very broadly, I oversee our operations throughout the state of Ohio. So we've got 4 main programs that we run at the Mission Continues. 3 of them are sort of at the national level, that being our Mass Deployment Summit, and 1 being at the local level, which is our Service Platoon program. And my job as a city impact manager is to really oversee the Service Platoon programs in Columbus and Cleveland, being the 2 cities in Ohio that we have a presence. So the Service Platoons are veteran-led. The Service Platoons are veteran-led community service groups. So I do everything from long-range planning for those groups to building connections with nonprofit organizations or community partners, really driving the operation that we've got on the ground there, to helping recruit veterans and connect with other veteran service organizations to create the opportunities for a veteran to give back and continue to serve.
So then how might a service platoon be different in Cleveland and Columbus, and then even from Philadelphia and Phoenix?
Yeah, and even just within Columbus and Cleveland, the service platoons look very different. And the way that the service platoon program is structured is, as I mentioned, it's veteran-led community service. But we use an operations-based model where we work with other nonprofits and community partners to address a challenge that's facing a community. So in Columbus, for example, our service platoon here focuses on food insecurity, and we've partnered with the Mid-Ohio Food Bank to do that. Through our partnership with the Mid-Ohio Food Bank, when we reached out to them and said, how can we help? They said, the way that you can help us fight food insecurity in Columbus is by partnering with food pantries and urban farms and urban gardens that are really on the front lines doing the heavy lifting in this area. So through their network of food pantries and urban farms and gardens, we've connected with multiple organizations on the south side of Columbus, completely different, We did our community mapping there and wanted to figure out what does it look like in Cleveland in an area that we might be able to help or challenges facing a neighborhood in Cleveland. Through that, we were able to connect with the Boys and Girls Club. And the Boys and Girls Club, same thing when we had our initial meetings there, we said to help you reach the children that are these at-risk youth that are in Cleveland better. And they said, we've got this outdoor programming that we would love to strengthen. And right now, it's very fledgling. We've got this idea for a children's garden, and we've got this agriculture, this farm club children's garden, and we've got this agriculture, this farm club program, but we want to get more children interested in it. So could you help us build that out maybe? And so that's what we've partnered with the Boys and Girls Club in Cleveland to do, is really build out and strengthen their outdoor programming with the idea of making it such that children want to be a part of it and want to come to the club to do this. And that time between when school ends and when parents get home, they're in the club, not at home or unsupervised somewhere. Somewhere else.
So what fascinates me the most about Mission Continues, and it's really the thing that has inspired me to start Freedom's Ring and to do this for military spouses, is that you guys are a veteran service organization, but the way that you serve the veteran is to and community service. And so I want to know if you can talk to us about just why continued service is so impactful for veterans.
Sure. So at the Mission Continues, we utilize a model, what we call the Empowered Veterans Index. And this is a tool that we have that focuses on empowering a veteran in three separate areas. We talk about the personal growth of a veteran, the community impact that we make through the veteran's work, and then the connectedness of a veteran and that other veterans and to the community. We were founded as an organization with the idea that veterans have this desire to continue to serve. And we've found over the last 12 years that desire is strong with all veterans, not just the post 9/11 generation, which is how we were founded. This idea of abilities that veterans have from their time in the service and this desire that they have to continue to serve is what makes the Mission Continues so powerful and our programming so strong.
Much of the work that I've seen Mission Continues do has focused on under-resourced communities. You've mentioned working with food insecurity, working with Girls Club, with at-risk youth, and then also I've seen elsewhere that you've worked with under-resourced schools. Is that a directive from the Mission Continues, or is that the role of the city manager to go find these areas of concern?
That is, yes, that is a directive that comes to a service platoon. As a city impact manager, really my role is to work with our platoon leader and our community partners to do some of the mapping around what that area of need would be and identify mission partners or nonprofit organizations that are really making strides in that area. As an organization, want to strengthen our communities, and we know that a strong veteran makes a strong community makes a strong nation. And this idea that if we can strengthen a veteran, utilize what the veteran has, strengthen the community, that we're making
really there connects the dots between how service and that sense of contribution does heal or make the transition of a veteran easier. Can you share some of the impact stories that you have on veterans and some of the success stories that you have with that?
One of the stories that I like to share here is really about a veteran that is from our LA platoon, and it's not local here, obviously in Columbus, but he talks about, and he shared his story at our platoon leader summit last fall, and that was the first opportunity I really had to hear. But it was the not having a purpose and not knowing what he was doing with his life and just going through the motions, but not happy, not transitioning well. And even though seemingly home life looked fine, everything work-wise looked okay, this feeling and this weight-wise looked okay. This feeling and this weight that was within him that everything he was doing didn't have purpose anymore. And he shared about how just through a friend showing up at a project lit that spark within him, and it took him from he's not making a difference to having an opportunity immediately to start seeing the results of the difference that he was making through the service platoon. And that was 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now. And he had stayed with it and gone through, was able to participate in a mass deployment, became a platoon leader, stayed on as a platoon leader, got to then do the mass deployment in LA last year as a platoon leader. And the idea and the feeling that he has that he's making a difference in his community now, totally for him just brought him back to a point where his service mattered, and he felt like he was able to still contribute.
And that's the real service to the veteran, right? Is providing that sense of purpose. I remember hearing a story similar to that when I first heard about Mission Continues. And it happened at a point in where I had a job that I loved. I was teaching at the high school that I was hoping to become principal of. And I was teaching government, enjoying it, and met my husband, quickly had 2 kids 10 days after our second child was born. We moved from my hometown of Yuma, Arizona, out to Long Island, New York community. We decided at that point that I would stay home with our 2 kids, 15-month-old and a newborn. And without teaching, I felt that lost a sense of purpose, and that my day was so much different than before, and I lost that sense of contribution. And so when I heard community service, I had the aha moment that the work that you guys are doing can be universal, that community service could really provide a sense of purpose because you are contributing, you are getting out in the community, you are getting involved, meeting people face to face, that all these things really do empower a person and build up their confidence and their sense of self-worth. So I'm wondering if you guys talk about, or how you can talk about, what is it specifically about veteran transition that people don't really know about, and that your mission really helps towards? And what part of your mission is universal, that a teacher who is no longer teaching in the classroom can find purpose through service, or anybody who may have lost a job or in a transition of some sort can use contribution as a way to gain self-confidence and self-worth?
Yeah. So 2-part question there. We'll start with the veteran, and then we'll come back to the sense of purpose for everybody. Veteran transitions, no veteran transition's ever going to look the same. My veteran transitions, per se, and you have to think about it in a lot of ways, and the way that I talk about this is on a spectrum. And veterans, as they transition out, are all going to each have their own unique set of needs that are going to be met. Whether you come out with a plan or a half-baked plan that are going to be met. Whether you come out with a plan or a half-baked plan like I had, which was school, and then I have no idea. Your needs are going to be different. When we talk about a veteran transition, there's some veterans that come out of the military, and whether it was a combat experience, they really need to just spend that time focusing on themselves. And it's programs like Save a Warrior, which is a fantastic program, or work through the VA, whether it's mental or physical health, but they really just need to take the time, focus on themselves, and get them to a point where their next step is maybe their military experience wasn't great, and they're dissatisfied. They're like, I'm done with that. That was a part of my life. I'm moving on to my next thing. That doesn't mean that desire to serve is gone, but they aren't maybe ready to engage with an organization. They might use GI Bill, they might use some of the benefits that they had, but they're going to go to school. They're going to figure out what their next step in life is. Then you have other veterans that come out and are ready to go to school, have a stable job, home life is good, or personal life is good, And those are really the veterans that personal life is good. And those are really the veterans that are connecting with Mission Continues. That desire to serve throughout that whole spectrum is there, but it's the veteran being at a point where they're able to start giving back to the community that it really starts to resonate, where they're able to get out into the community. Not to say that a veteran that's focusing on themselves might not be there and want to do that, but first and foremost, they need to focus on what is best.
So when a veteran is ready to give back to the community and they want to work with the Mission Continues, I assume that the best point of entry is through a service platoon. How many locations are you guys serving?
We are in 55 metro areas throughout the United States, and we have about 80 service platoons. And when I say the United States, I'm including Puerto Rico at this point in there, even though they're not a United State. Yeah.
And then you guys have your other programs as well. So can a veteran enter at your other programs, say a mass deployment or the Service Leader Corps? Or
use at any of those points. The service platoons are the groups that are on the ground in the city and are really the most common route for people to get connected to the Mission Continues. But every year we have individuals that do our mass deployment or get connected to Leadership Corps or our Women's Veteran Leadership Summit programs. And that's their first experience with something in the Mission Continues. The idea then is that once they get back to their city and to their community, that they are ready to make a difference in their community, and hopefully that's through the service platoon. Ready to make a difference in their community, and hopefully that's through the service platoon, but not always. We've had in Columbus, we had individuals that were selected for Women's Veteran Leadership Summit last year, and we had two ladies. One is very active with the platoon, the other is not, but she's still very active in the Corps. We actually had 5 individuals from Columbus selected. 3 of them are very active with the Columbus platoon, and one of them is pretty active with the Cleveland platoon.
And real quickly, let's describe the other programs that you have: the mass deployment, the Service Leader Corps, and the Women Leadership Summit.
Perfect, yeah. So our 3 national programs that we have, I mentioned the service platoon is the local program. The mass deployment is an opportunity for a week of service where we bring veterans from all over the United States together to one city or one neighborhood for one full week of dedicated service to a neighborhood. And we're looking at really sparking the revitalization in a neighborhood, knowing that there's no way in the world we're completing it in 1 week. But what we can do is we can kickstart this process, right? And then the service platoon can take over and continue over the next 1 to 2 to 3 plus years the work that was started on a mass deployment. So this will be our 4th mass deployment in Baltimore in June of 2019. The first was in Detroit, Operation Motown Muster. We worked with Central High School in Detroit, the oldest high school in Detroit. And it was one mission partner overhauling the high school and the grounds for a week, and that's really what the project was. The next year we went to Atlanta, and inside of Atlanta we worked with multiple mission partners and multiple organizations, so a different project each day with a different organization. And that's the type of model that we took to LA last year. And in LA we went to Watts, and we were in Watts for a week working with the community there. And this year we'll use that same model. Our second program is our Women's Veteran Leadership Summit. And even though it's not a full program, we consider it a national program, but it's a full weekend of personal growth, connectedness, and really impact for women veterans, and connectedness and really impact for women veterans. And we bring women veterans from all over the United States together. This year will be in Washington, D.C. At the end of March. And they're able to really expand their network. They're able to share resources and really get a new outlook on overcoming what that professional roadblock might be. But it's a program I'll never get to experience or really get to be a part of. But I can tell you anecdotally from the women that experienced it last year how Impact was ready to be engaged and ready to engage with the city very quickly. And then our last program is our newest program, and that's our Service Leadership Corps. The first cohort is going through right now. We'll finish here in just a couple months, but it is a veteran leadership development program. And the idea with the Service Leadership Corps is not to create leaders in the veteran space, but to create veterans who are comfortable leading in their community. Comfortable advocating for whatever it is that they are passionate about. But we work through the program. They're able to take sort of the real world application, because we work group of 55 is broken down into smaller groups of 5 to 7 in a cohort there, or in a small group of the cohort, and they work with a nonprofit or a community partner on a challenge that's facing that organization, so that they're able to get practical application alongside they're going through. It's a combination of online and in-person training over the 6 months that they participate in.
Does the veteran get to initiate what issue they work on? Do they get to decide whether it's homelessness, food insecurity?
Yes and no. So broad nonprofit groups that we've been able to partner with nationally, and the idea for this is that the challenge that they're working on is not so specific to that organization that it couldn't be extrapolated, and the findings and to that organization that it couldn't be extrapolated, and the findings and the results that they put forward couldn't be used more broadly. So they were able to self-select to a point the group that they wanted to work in, but they were given an opportunity of about a dozen or so organizations that we had already connected with for the program.
Has anything really surprised you as you've gotten more involved with the Mission Continues?
Honestly, I've been very surprised at the passion that I'm seeing from other veterans as well. The idea of public service or service was ingrained from day one. I had a father that was in city council and then was the mayor of my hometown, and had dedicated his life to public service. My mom involved in volunteer organizations as a librarian, which if you've never worked at a library, you're in public service, like from day one working at a library. But the idea of giving back was with me. It was part of the reason why I joined the military. It was part of the reason I left. It was part of the reason why I joined the military. It was part of the reason I left the military, because I felt called to go serve in a different capacity in my community. But to see the true level of dedication that I've got from about a dozen volunteers, veteran volunteers and community volunteers here in Columbus, that are fully committed to the Mission Continues and the outreach that we're doing on the South Side. It's phenomenal.
What's been your favorite?
I think one of my favorite projects is one that we did here in Columbus, and it was our Veterans Day project. We had an opportunity to partner with Hamilton Township High School and Hoover YMCA Park on the far south side of Columbus to create an urban garden learning lab for the school. And high school science teacher at Hamilton Township is an Army veteran, and he and I were having a cup of coffee, and he said, I've got this crazy idea, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I want to create opportunities for my students to learn more about urban farming and urban gardening, and create an opportunity for them to explore an area of interest. Because as a teacher, I focus on employment, enrollment, or enlistment. So as a high school teacher, I want to get into a job, into the military, or into college after they leave, so that they are set up for their next step in life. And enrollment, the colleges are covered. Enlistment, military does a great job recruiting. But the idea of employment and providing opportunities, he said, I'm a science teacher. He said, and I'm an environmental science teacher at that. How can I create an opportunity for my students to learn something more about this in a way that's fun and exciting? So he said, I've got this, but I don't know how I'm going to. And we thought about it. We talked a little bit, and that was that. And about 2 months later, he gives me a call and he says, "So, Hoover YMCA Park has this old greenhouse. It's about a half a mile from the school. And I have no idea what this thing looks like. But do you think you guys could help?" And I said, "I think we might be able to. Let's just go down and take a look at this greenhouse and see what we're really talking about. Because if the whole greenhouse needs to be repaired, that might be a little bit beyond the scope of our ability. We are volunteers at the end of the day. So we only bring the skill and ability of the actual individual. We don't have the capacity to really teach somebody, how to build a new greenhouse." But we went down. The greenhouse was in fantastic condition, and structurally it was in fantastic condition. It needed some grown and hadn't been used in a few years. But I said, I think this is something we can help out with. So we started the process of putting together a service project where we were able to have our veterans and our community members volunteer right alongside students from the high school. And in that day, half a day really that we were out there, completely gutted the greenhouse of all the overgrowth and everything that was in there. Built a 24-foot by 4-foot garden box to be added, because the way that it was built inside was 2 long garden beds on either side. That was unused space, which is not conducive to growing in a greenhouse. So we built a 24-foot garden box right down the middle of it, and left room at the end, and created the opportunity for them to use it as a learning lab where they can have steel tables in there. The students can go and they can talk and they can work to get some hands-on experience, and just to see the project come to fruition, and to see the number of kids that came out. It was an exciting day for sure.
Well, that's everything that I had. Do you have anything else that you would like to share about the Mission Continues?
No, thank you so much for bringing me out and letting me talk for a little bit today about the Mission Continues and about Columbus.
Well, thank you, Ian, for being our extraordinary guest this week. For people who are interested in learning more about the Mission Continues, you can visit their website, www.missioncontinues.org, or follow them on social media. On Twitter, they're @MissionContinue, or The Mission Continues on Facebook and Instagram. Spirited stories of extraordinary acts for others that happen across our country. So if you ever see good news stories that increase your sense of patriotism, positive contribution, positive relationships, and idealism that things like this is what's going right in our country, share them with us so we can celebrate. Tag @FreedomsRingUSA. Just days after a devastating tornado killed 23 people. 2 corporations who declined to be named have pledged to pay for the funerals of all 23 victims. The local sheriff's office said, "What a wonderful blessing this would be for the families who have lost loved ones, as the victims here range from ages 6 to 90. This is how we come together as communities." Next, we go to New Jersey, where weather forecasts called Just share with us a meaningful, extraordinary acts for others that you have done. You can do this on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. But Rick's dad showed us this to be true in the story above. But seeing stories of service brings more positive emotions and gets people thinking how they can do extraordinary acts for others themselves. So participate and share your story using the hashtag extraordinary acts for others.